Okay, let's talk about the Wolves, who I was pretty damn optimistic on coming into the season. I thought they were equipped to being one of the better regular season teams in the West, no doubt about it. And as I'm doing this video, the Jazz are the 1 seed, so that's the NBA for you. 5-6 so far. Rudy has not played in the last 2 games because of health and safety. They lost to the Knicks, they beat the Rockets. I'm mostly going to focus on the games that Rudy has played. Their defensive rating is better than last season so far, and when Gobert is in the game, it's way better than it was last season. I will talk about the defense, but I really want to get to the offense because I think that is the biggest hang-up right now. They're 22nd in offensive rating. When Gobert and Cat are in the game together, I think the first noticeable thing is that unless they're running a set play, and I think the most successful ones have been when Rudy and Cat are setting a double screen up top, and it opens up like Cat popping and then Rudy diving to the rim, which has led to like some lobs or Rudy getting a seal on, I think it was Brook Lopez, one possession in that Bucks game. So those plays are cool, but outside of those, when it's more of a freelance thing, when those two are in the game together, it usually becomes Gobert screening for Edwards or D'Lo. There might be a stat that tells me I'm wrong on that one, but that's what my brain sees. And those have been a mixed bag. I mean, there are times where D'Lo will get the defender on his back as Rudy's diving, and Rudy might seal off his guy, and then D'Lo does his kind of snake through the paint thing and gets a layup. That's cool. Or he or Ant might hit a pull-up. That's great. There's other times where you'll have like Rudy's guy dropping. They don't always drop. Sometimes it's a switch, and then that leads to the other conversation of Rudy's offense. Will they throw him the ball? Will he seal his defender? The same conversation we had in Utah for years, right? But when it's not a switch and they're dropping, it'll be like, Rudy's guy will be in the paint, and then the initial defender will be like behind Edwards, let's say, and there might be some help as well. And then before you know it, there's like 4 dudes in the paint, and it's just like, this is just kind of tough right now. The other thing that's happening, though, is I think Cat is being pushed to the perimeter a little too much in these scenarios. And it does feel like when those two are in the game together, the play does become a Rudy screen a lot of the time for the ball handler, which, I mean, hey, that's the best way to utilize Gobert's offense, right? It's have him dive into the rim. Now, the irony of that is that might imply that Rudy is getting like a bunch of lobs and stuff. Well, that's been trending in the wrong direction the last 3 games that he's played, because I think another thing when the spacing is kind of rough or if they're switching on him, those dives to the rim are just not always going to be there. There's also a chance that they are there and guys are just not catching him every single time. But back to Cat's shot attempts, specifically when he's playing with Rudy, you got to remember that Towns can do a lot more than just spot up for you. And I mean, look, Cat, he's still averaging about 22 points a game. It's not as if his offense is cratered here or anything. And sure, within this, when Towns is spotting up on the 3-point line, like there's still value in that. He's of course a great shooter, but I think there are some interesting stats where so far Cat is shooting basically the least amount of shots he's ever attempted in the restricted area. His free throws are a little down, his 3-point attempts are a little up, and yes, he did lose a lot of weight right before the season. He was sick. That probably is still affecting him. So it just might not really be in the cards for him to just be in the post like that right now. With that being said, they've had some moments. They lost the Spurs game, but at the beginning of that game, they had a clear emphasis on we're going to get it to Cat in the post. And there were the first play of the game, it was Cat posting up, and Gobert was on the opposite block, right, on the other side of the paint. And Cat was able to get himself a hook shot. There was another play in that game where he faced up on Zach Collins and he got a drive on him. And I don't remember if it was a finish or like a little fadeaway or whatever. In the Bucks game, there was a play where Cat had a hook shot in a post-up over Bobby Portis. And that was with Rudy in the game, again on the opposite block. Now when Gobert is not in the game, you do see a few more Cat screens sprinkled in there, some more elbow actions. He is having his best passing season for what it's worth. And some of it's going to be guys cutting around him when he's on the elbow, stuff like that. Now, as far as D'Lo, because I think he has been the least popular guy amongst the fan base and all that, and yeah, I mean, his shot making has been rough to open up the season, so you're simply just going to hope that the threes are dropping and some of those little, 12-foot pull-ups that he can get when coming off of a Gobert screen are just going to simply go in. But besides that, I mean, remember when Conley didn't click with Gobert right away when he showed up in Utah? And D'Lo is similar to Conley in that he's not like a super-duper athlete. Look, man, they knew what they were trading for with Gobert. They knew the space was not going to be as open as when it was a D'Lo Cat pick and roll from last season. And as for Edwards, I mean, he already had that quote a week ago where he just straight up said, I can't dunk over everybody. When I go to the rim, everybody's in the paint, all that stuff. So what am I asking for? I mean, I might just be asking for set plays whenever those two are in the game together. I mean, whether that's something where Edwards starts from the corner, gets a handoff from somebody, and then you have like a screen happening on the other side of the floor and maybe Towns is moving within all that. It's like, okay, is it impossible to run more Cat Edwards pick and rolls while Gobert is in the game? All that's going to be on Chris Finch. And as for Rudy, I mean, of course, he is not without fault in this offense. It's just that he's being normal Rudy Gobert. But his limitations are always going to be there. Like, he's just not going to be the shooter and ball handler and all that. As far as the defense, when Rudy and Cat are out there together, their defensive rating is 107, which is a great number. Rudy's personal defensive rating on the year is 104, which is an even better number. He's in a drop. It's not really shocking. They have tried some things, like against the Bucks, Rudy had possessions where he was guarding Giannis, and Cat had possessions where he was guarding Brook. And then if I'm remembering right, I think in the second half they just flipped it the other way around. I think they did a similar thing in the Spurs game where like Gobert was defending Bates Jop sometimes, and Cat was on Pirtle. Pretty much, I mean, when Gobert's guarding screens, he's in a drop, and it's been pretty damn effective so far. I think the adjustment is more so everything around him, where it's like guys need to figure out the proper amount of help to bring. I don't want to go crazy with naming a bunch of specific plays, but I will say one. In the Suns game, there was an action where Cam Johnson and Biyombo had a little bit of an action, and Gobert, as he does, he was walling off the paint. And as that's happening, Edwards is helping pretty aggressively off of Devin Booker on the opposite wing. And he just didn't need to do that. Like, Gobert was right there. Biyombo was not going to score at the rim. It leads to a kick to Booker, who gets himself a pretty comfortable pull-up jumper. And then when Cat is in the game, it's a little more of playing aggressively on screens. Not all the time. Sometimes Cat is at the level or just slightly below the level. As far as Cat on the perimeter, there have been some plays where, because he's going to play high up on screens. That's what he was doing last year. He doesn't do it every single time, but a good amount of the time, that's what he's doing. And it puts the defense in more rotation. And there have been some moments where, like, somebody's open in the corner, and I don't know if it's the specific plan for Cat to then go from the screen to all the way to the corner to close out a shooter, and if they're just asking him to do all that, or if it's like somebody else didn't pick it up and then Cat just had to do that. I mean, for what it's worth, like, yes, they gained Gobert, and I do think that still gives them a higher ceiling on their defense overall, and I am optimistic with the defense. I do think they project to being very good on that side of the floor. They already are, and they're ninth in defensive rating right now. But you did lose Pat Bev and Vanderbilt, who were two guys who were really good at flying around in that aggressive defensive scheme the Wolves had last season. So yeah, that's about all I got. I will say one thing, and this is obvious, but maybe I just feel like being dramatic. This has to work. They gave up too many damn picks for this not to work.